Well, another live, everybody. This is epic, and it's actually on Alberta statehood movement. Independent statehood folks, especially in the regions, and a lot of regional groups and Canadians on the conservative side, fringe conservative side, always have the United Nations in great and grievous error. The United Nations is absolutely the United States of America. So when you say, get rid of the United Nations, I have no use for the United Nations. It's corrupt. It's WEF, WHO, all these agendas, Agenda 2030, 21, and they go on and on. They go on and on. Mass immigration, all these things. Those things are not the United States of America. They are not the Russian Federation. They're not China. They're not operated the same way in the countries of the United Kingdom and the country of France. They operate their old world order system, where there was a system of empires that had a League of Nations, which had the WHO, the WEF, are you following me? The IMO, the OIM, the worst of the worst charities that people go through, and many nobody's ever even heard of. All of that of climate change, climate action, Agenda 2021, Paris Climate Accord, Kyoto Accord, Ottawa Accord. We can go on and on to any of those countries that I just listed, those accords, those agendas that were never birthed in the United Nations. It's in the title, folks. It's called the United Nations Charter, 1946, that abolished all of that, that you had to be united as a nation with equality of all your people to be an equal state. That is the UN Charter, Article 1, then it's Article 2, and we go all the way through. There's many. When we get to Article 55, we go into all of your natural rights, your civil and human rights that don't exist in what? The WHO, the WEF, the IMO, the OIM, and on and on. In fact, there's 28 of them, folks. Yes, there's accords and groups and all of these things. They come from empires, monarchies, who under their crowns, in joint unison, this was all of the Axis powers and allies outside of USA and Russia, and of course China, because China was in a civil war at the time, okay? All the other nations of the world that were in the old world order, that you all call New World Order, is actually old world order. The WEF is extremely old. It's had 3 names. It's 600 years old. All monarchical. All of it. WEF's not even the major. It's a big one. It's not the major. They are non-governmental organizations owned and registered by old crown colonial families with titles of divinity. They wear crowns and they have scepters, and they're heads of state of many, many nations today. That's who and what it is and who created them, and you can find them registered still today. Almost all 28 are either at the Palace of Nations, side by side in this epic grand scale in an institution that was abolished in World War II. But all those orgs can't enter the United Nations. They can't. They can't have any effect. What they do is they continue to operate in the old world order system with 2 veto powers known as France and UK. And again, these orgs are very old. Very old. Most are registered to London. All are in Switzerland, the central of the Palace of Nations, the Nine Kingdoms. Yes. Yes. Almost all the Catholic nations, church under state. Yes. All of the Muslim empire nations. Yes. Church under state too. Yes, Israel, who's fabricated that way, Judaism, church under state. This has always been truth since World War II, and it's supposedly have had to be abolished. Those orgs continue, and they're funded through the General Assembly nations, which is a majority in this world, monarchies, civil law socialist, colony states. Canada's one of them. In fact, we're one of the largest funders of said non-governmental organizations. I've taught a class more than now 9 years ago on Canadian civil societies, the evil of it. I taught actually many Albertans. It's a class I should reinvigorate and I should host, and of course I don't charge any money, but I should really teach all Canadians. I should do it provincial wide, because Benjamin Ebley puts a post, should we leave the UN? Should the UN be abolished? And of course everybody wants that in the Alberta statehood movement. And when you look at all Canadians in general that classify themselves on this right-fighting Christian side of the spectrum, you're all church under state. Remember, America is church and state. They're separate. State's not over church, church's not over state. They're separate. The people get to choose their state and how that state runs, as well as the religion each individual wants to pursue. And nobody has a right to tell you what to do with that, as long as you never try to fuse the two or use one to subvert the other. And in the understanding that there is a higher power we call God. And for America, that's founded in Christianity, not Catholicism, not Judaism, not the Islamic faith, Muslims, all of it, not church under state folks. There was never American independence in a minority's minority. I'm sorry, that's just truthful. And if you don't know this, it's because your government has done away with the UN Charter that clearly was a promise that all governments who wanted to be recognized states in the world, and remember, atomic bombs were dropped on Japan, a very powerful colonial elite imperial that was everything, and I mean everything, of all those NGOs. One and the same, because they were the strongest at it, as were UK, France, and Italy. That's the truth. That was the old Security Council of the League of Nations, run all by NGOs, and it led to world wars, all by those NGOs. Elites wanting to run the daily lives of citizens, because there's no citizens. In the NGOs world, you're subjects, serfs, peasants, and worse, non-human being savages who have many names over thousands of years. That's how far it goes back. Some of those NGOs go all the way back, all the way to the inception of Egypt and some of the oldest Old Testament truths. Those NGOs are there in their inception. And apparently no Canadian knows this, and they blame the UN corrupted General Assembly, the lowest tier of the UN. There's 5 organs of the UN, the lowest being the General Assembly, the highest authority who makes all international binding law and tells you how it is the United Nations Security Council, that is fused with everything that is entirely the United States Constitution and the Russian Federation's Constitution, until they rolled into extreme communism under some dictators. They're back to the original Russian Federation as of 1991. They have a constitution. The principles of the UN are how Russia conducts their affairs globally. Same with the United States of America, because it's how they conduct their affairs in their oblasts for Russia and in their states, USA. 50 states. It's way more than 80 oblasts now. It's not confirmed yet, but what they're holding, 89, and it's likely to be more when everything's settled. Maybe even much more than that if Ukraine completely falls. Neither here nor there. Everybody needs to understand this. You don't get nation status in this world without the United Nations, specifically the United Nations Security Council, the highest organ of the UN. And there's others. There's other organs much higher than the General Assembly. If you haven't read the UN Charter, you should. If you're in the narrative of all these NGOs and you're blaming the United Nations for that, it's time for you to blame your politicians, hold them to account in the highest laws of the UN. That's on all of you, those who allow themselves to be deemed subjects, serfs, peasants, or savages. You allow that, and then you expect 5 nations to pull you out of that, 2 of which will never pull you out of that because they still hold the same systems in place today. It's unfortunate they made a promise to the Russian Federation, former Soviet Union, and the United States. One was called Yalta Conference, 1942. The other one's called the Atlantic Charter, 1941. Unfortunately, France and UK never held their word, have kept all their colonial assets, and continue on in that stasis. France runs the European Union as the veto UNSC member. UK runs the entire Commonwealth. Together, they've almost got half of the UN states, just those 2 countries. And worse, they've got a mass amount of the world population. Nearly 40% for the United Kingdom and another 12% for France. That's reality. Put it together, you've got 52. That overshadows USA and Russia, who do not hold any colonial assets, and in fact have only administered free states. And all the way up to 2005, they had it nearly at that 50% mark. Now we're down to 60%. Some are trying. They're trying. USA and Russia have done more for the world than anybody, especially USA. If it wasn't for those countries, we would absolutely have 0 human rights. In Canada, Canadians don't even have civil rights. They don't know what that is. They definitely have 0 natural rights that they're born with. I mean 0. Civil rights don't exist in Canada because they're to be constituted at the provincial level, exactly how the United States and the Russian oblasts are. That's not their fault. They're 2 countries that try and even go to war to see these actions when people do rebel, or they're trying to do the right thing and the evil regimes come in with all the NGOs behind them. This is your mass immigration. Canada, you are in mass immigration. That's not the General Assembly of the UN that did that to you. Your country did that. They couldn't even get it passed in the General Assembly with all the funding of the NGOs behind them. Canada could only get 27 states out of 193. Not binding law. Look at UNDRIP. That's not binding law. We can go on and on into many evils that are perpetuated just by Canada. Never mind so many Commonwealth countries in league with UK to make elites rich, as it was in the world before 1945, that led to 2 world wars and a mass amount of drug and human trafficking, child trafficking, because children had no rights if their parents had no rights. Children were for the first class if they fancied it. Rape didn't even exist in that world. America brought the crime of rape forward. Russia has the crime of rape. You can look at this in international law. It certainly wasn't any of those other countries. Just Canada alone, the crime of rape really didn't even come into play until 19 1882. In USA, we're talking 1800s. Like, wow. And remember, USA was a weak, lower power, not even a middle power at that time, only delivering on their own territory. Same with the Russian Federation, all the way up to World War I and just after, until they fell to communism, stabbed in the back. Who do you think was responsible for that? As AI comes into play, as history becomes available to all, not just secrets of elite academics, doctorates, where you got to pay exorbitant amount of monies to learn, it's starting to become available to all kinds of general publics, at least in free countries. Now, if you're in Canada and you're in Oxford, these things become challenging. You have to look to media platforms controlled by Webster's English. We're lucky we have Grok AI. We're lucky we have lots of American AI to utilize. We're lucky America's as strong as it is. Russia's got some good stuff too. The Lexilogos, I'm sure their AI will continue as it's always been in the Lexilogos, that you can look up. You always could. You can learn anything you want from these countries. I know I did. I was blessed in COVID, for one thing, to be able to do all these tours and go into all of these institutions, access to all of this information, read, spend time with doctorates. If I could read it, I could understand it, I can converse with them. They accept you. That was a beautiful thing, because if it wasn't for COVID, I would have to fly myself there at exorbitant amounts of money and time, which would be impossible. The cost of all that was done on live online for me would have been in the many hundreds of thousands of dollars, which means I never would have done it. I never would have entered there. I never would have met all these people. I wouldn't have the access I have now today. It's a beautiful thing. I wish I could unload that onto all Canadians. I am happy that at least in Webster AI, we're getting that. And I think when Russia's conflict's over with Ukraine, however that goes, and they're back into the fold, mainstream with the world again, we're going to have all that too. And we're going to see all the new Russian AI. And I think USA, the government of the United States, is already accessing that, working with the Russians. I believe that, because they're all coming to the same conclusions on many fronts, that this is bad, detrimental to us. We have to stop battling each other. We have to start letting people fight their own battles. When you look at USA and Russia, they've always been pitted against each other for all of these kingdom empire systems who are still in the old world order that all of you call the new world order. USA is not a part of it. Russia's not a part of it. And frankly, China isn't a part of a lot of it either. They're communism, sure. I don't like communism. I don't even like Russian civil law socialism. Quebec's that way. I don't think that's a good thing. I like the common law based on a higher law of natural law that everyone's born with. The American system. I think Canadians deserve that. I think civil rights should be for all of us. They should be enshrined in our highest laws, in division of powers as they were supposed to be, but the Crown never has. And that is old world order. That is all of the world of those NGOs created by Kingdom Empires 9, in fact. Mostly Catholic, mostly Muslim, and Judaist. And there's other religions attached to that, but I give you the three big ones that spin out to many others. You won't find Russian Christianity or American Christianity in their inceptions involved in any of this. No. And they certainly don't allow for those NGOs. They don't. And they make the law, they enforce the law, and when your country doesn't do that and goes its own way, sure, they'll do sanctions, trade embargoes, even military interventions, which they've been doing since World War II. Again, we moved from 50-some states to 193 today. You can thank Russia and USA for that. Mostly USA, but Russia's there too. They've come together on some of the greatest human rights achievements that mankind's ever known in any history before Russia and USA came on the stage as superpowers. Now, you can choose to read for yourself, start learning the truth, or you can be a foolish Canadian, an institutionalized idiot a village idiot, and America will finish you off. They will pursue sanctions, trade embargoes. They already are. And eventually it will hit military intervention. That is the truth of every monarchical colonial who ends up in this manner. And it's Canada's turn. And they can spin it. They can call it all kinds of things they want with other names. All those names have definition. Trade embargoes, sanctions, and then to military intervention. Eventually, your country does not exist that way anymore, if it's even a country. That's my truth, my video. It's absolute precedent, world precedent. Unfortunately, no Canadian understands it because you've been withheld all this information. All you have to do, again, it's very simple. I told everybody on X. How many countries existed before World War II? Concluded. How many exist today? How did they come to be? And you find a mass decolonization, a mass amount of independence, and you find a mass amount of United Nations Security Council resolutions. I've read them all. There is no other way to it. So if you don't want the UN, you don't want human rights, you don't want civil rights, you don't want natural rights. In fact, you want elites, divine elites, to rule over you as a subject, a serf, a peasant, and a savage. There are still other names out there. There's many more, in fact, but those are the big ticket ones that almost cover everybody, that almost everybody can relate to that. You should be able to. And if you don't get that, that's what happens to you when you leave the United Nations. That's what happens to you. Abolish that, that's what you are. And then you're under a head of state in the old world order, and you're on a lord's land, and you will be slaved, which is what they want anyway. But that's your country doing it to you. Your country, with a UN state status, is involved with all these NGOs against the allies of World War II. So if you're against the allies, the victorious allies of World War II, who are you? Oh, that makes you an Axis power, which makes you a socialist and a fascist. Comprende? Understand? I know my friends and followers do, and I've been very careful to keep that narrative live at all times and constantly remind people. Because when you post that, I should be able to post this video, post this knowledge, and my friends and followers in large volumes share, agree, understand, and go with that, which means they're absolutely still fused, the woke, whatever you want to call it, but they're fused with the old world order, are deadly against the United States of America and any idea of we the people. Whether they know it or not, their actions, their words condemn themselves. And if you're an American who loves the American Constitution, you see somebody talking like that, they're deadly anti-American, because the UN Charter is nothing but America and the Russian Federation too. That's my video. If you don't know this, I don't know what to tell you. You've got to start doing some reading, because if you're a sovereigntist, autonomist, or independence type person, or a region separating from a country to join another, any of those narratives, you best learn the United Nations, and you best become best friends with it, because only the allies of World War II, the victorious allies of World War II, will make your dreams a reality. That's it. That's the only way. Outside of your own revolution, which I don't see anywhere in Canada, and people who talk like that are foolish and phony. And if you haven't seen the most recent COVID-19 truckers in Ottawa, they got beat down and there was no revolution. Everybody, yes, master, yes, master. The house Negro always wins. The field Negro goes back to work. That's the story, the grassroots reality of it, that's much older than that American Truth of Malcolm X in 1960. He just gives the greatest understanding of it. And he had to go to Mecca to come back with a love of America, learning the truth of church under state and the truth of Islam and all Muslims in majority today in monarchies from the 9 kingdoms, palace nations. He came back with the united love of all Americans, equality of the person. And they executed him in the most horrific way because this man could read, he could grow, he understood, and he was honest. He was an honest person who grew and changed over time and found that epic truth, a truth I admire, that I have found in my life, and that I give the gift as much as I can over and over of the glorious allies of World War II. If that's not you, remember, that means you don't want human rights, you don't want civil rights, and you certainly don't believe in natural law, rights you're born with, one with your nature and surroundings, making one with it at the individual level, and then building your community out from there. And laws enshrined at the individual level, that the power comes from the individual. Hey, if that's not you, and you believe in divine human beings who wear crowns and tell you how it is, decide what happens with your money, how much value you're to have, how much property you're allowed to have of theirs, of wealth of theirs, or how much you can get as long as you generate for them. If that's you, a slave, and you love that, then go ahead. Get rid of the United Nations. Go back to the old world order. Because I promise you, the WHO, the WEF, the IOM, OIM, all of them, there's 24 more than that, want that from you. That's Agenda 2050, 2030, 2021, Paris, Kyoto, and many, many more. Ottawa Declaration. Goes on and on. You can look at which countries were all monarchies or colonial assets or evil empires of old who did horrendous things to people, church under state. If that's you, that's fine, go that way. But just remember, you will not have any true freedom or any rights, and you are saying you're less of a person, that you're not an equal human being. You're an animal subject to a master, like a dog or a slave. And slavery's been around for thousands of years, so it's not just in modern time. There's still slavery, but thanks to USA and Russia and those victorious allies and their narratives they imposed, called the United Nations, and everyone had to sign the charter, you weren't a country anymore, and you could never become one. So, again, you pick your fights, you pick your truths, your battles, but if you're a Canadian, which is a majority that talk about that, at least from one side of the spectrum, that's what you're going to give up, your humanity, and you want to be an animal, a slave, a whipping boy, the field Negro, as Malcolm X clearly explained, and you want to be under a house Negro who knows better, and there's a master, but the house Negro will whip you harder than the master ever could, because he just, or she loves the master, right? Master sick. It's the greatest explanation known to man. It's a truth of thousands and thousands of years of human history under those old world order systems that were the longest running and most evil humanity's ever seen. People like Jesus, Mohammed, Moses, and many more, many religions came forward to challenge those narratives, to bring humans into humanity. And we are lucky that USA and Russia came forward to win World War II the way they did, especially the United States. If you're an English-speaking person, even if you are programmed through Oxford, people should really learn Webster's and understand things. And I'm going to be doing a lot more work on that. I've been opened up to musicians in American history, and I got to do all that too. But folks, share this video, get it out there. Show everybody that Canada, the 51st state, truly does love and understand America. And the reason why we want that is because we understand the power of the individual, the rights and love of our fellow human beings. And that's really the promise of America and the truth of America. In its institution, it's everything. And yes, it's Christian-based, but it's not these church under state religions that fell a long time ago. So that's the truth. Share, share, share. Get it out there. Until these religions come forward with this truth and stop taking on wealth the way they are under these church under state systems and pretending that they're one for Jesus or for Muhammad, or I should say, sorry, Allah, right? It becomes pathetic. It becomes pathetic. Moses, same thing too. Anyways, that's my video. Absolute, undeniable truth. When you hate the UN, you blame the UN, you hate Russia, and you equally hate the United States with everything you are. So if you want to end that, you might as well just stand up and say, I want a war on America. I want to destroy the American people and everything they represent, because that's the truth of it. That's what you're saying. God bless everybody. Share, share, share. Get this video out there. This will be my last video of the night. I'm going to get up early and continue to work and read in my time and get some other projects done. Bye now.